Really honored to be here. I'd like to thank Carly Gillis and the Medium team for your interest in my work and for elevating the topic of gaslighting, especially in this election season. I'm Dr. Robin Stern. I'm the co-founder and senior advisor to the director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. I'm a licensed psychoanalyst in private practice for 30 years and the author of The Gaslight Effect and the Gaslight Effect Recovery Guide, and I'm the proud host of the Gaslight podcast. Clearly, I'm not a tech whiz, so I apologize for our beginning. During my years treating individuals and couples, I saw all too many cases of gaslighting. I dedicated much time to unpacking the dynamic and the effect gaslighting was having on the targets of gaslighting. While anyone can be a gaslighter and anyone can be a gaslightee, the pairing I saw most often in my own office was women coming in complaining of their gaslighter husbands or boyfriends. That's, of course, not always the case. It was stunning to me that so many women who were otherwise strong, confident, and feeling empowered in their lives were second-guessing themselves and feeling unstable, insecure, and ultimately hopeless in their romantic relationships. I felt compelled to write about it. When I wrote the book in 2007, I wrote about gaslighting as a tango between two people, a gaslighter who needs to be right to preserve their own sense of self and power, a gaslightee who is manipulated into allowing the gaslighter to define their sense of reality because they idealize their gaslighter and need their approval. Over time, the gaslightee, any one of us could be the gaslightee, can feel themselves slipping into confusion and self-doubt and giving up pieces of themselves to accommodate their gaslighter's reality. The descent through stages of gaslighting is increasingly disorienting and devastating. Some call it soul-destroying. But gaslighting is not just in romantic relationships. While the pairings I saw in my office were people in romantic relationships, gaslighting has also invaded our culture in every sector, and many attribute the increase in usage of the term gaslighting to our political climate. Over the years, I began to research and talk about gaslighting that occurs in organizations, in religious groups, in cults, in political groups, where in each there is a powerful leader setting the tone and establishing the reality, his reality, their reality, for all involved. Today, with the election season upon us, I'm here to talk about how we can identify gaslighting and protect ourselves and our reality from candidates and potential leaders who may gaslight. But first, what is the definition of gaslighting? Gaslighting is a popular term, as I've said, so much so that it was voted Word of the Year in Merriam-Webster 2002. By Merriam-Webster in 2002. The term gaslighting is often misused as an accusation, stop gaslighting me, to someone who disagrees with someone else. It's important to understand that's not gaslighting, that's disagreement, unless it turns into gaslighting with a shift. And it's important to understand what gaslighting is. Gaslighting is a serious, insidious, and sometimes covert form of emotional abuse in a power dynamic and repeated over time. I'll say that again because it's really important. In a power dynamic and repeated over time, where the abuser insists on their own reality as the reality, seeking to sow seeds of doubt in their target, leading the gaslightee to question their own judgment, their reality, their character, and extreme cases, their sanity. Gaslighting is a type of psychological manipulation in which a gaslighter, the more powerful person in the relationship, tries to convince the gaslightee that there is something wrong with them, that they are misremembering, misperceiving, misinterpreting the situation, or their own behavior or motivations, thus creating doubt in the gaslightee, leaving them vulnerable and confused. Sadly, today we live in a gaslight culture, where in the realm of politics, truth can flicker like a gaslight, and people in general are more vulnerable to being confused. Why is that? Well, we've been living the COVID years, where especially at the beginning, many people were living every day destabilized, where life was unpredictable, uncertain, and unstable. There's much socioeconomic instability as well, leaving people anxious. Economic disparity, housing and job insecurity, health insecurity. Many people are lonely. Many people feel isolated. And the rise of social media and social influencers has also had an impact on our culture. Huge impact. They are a new power source. For many, they are the news source. Many influencers are here today, gone tomorrow, and in fact, leading us to wonder, who do I trust? Who's going to be there for me? Many young people tell me that the influencers in their life have a lot of power over their followers, similar to cult leaders. They can manipulate, they can tell people what is the best, what is not the best, what they need to do, what they shouldn't do. And then there's, of course, artificial intelligence, causing us to wonder if what we're reading and what we're seeing and listening to is real or not real. In personal relationships, I've told people through the years that there are red flags to watch for. You wonder if you're in a gaslighting relationship. You're constantly second-guessing yourself. You ask yourself, am I too sensitive a dozen times a day, or too paranoid, or too needy? You often feel confused and crazy when you're listening to your gaslighter. You frequently make excuses for your gaslighter's behavior. You know something is terribly wrong with what your gaslighter is saying, but you just can't quite put your finger on it. You have trouble making simple decisions about what's right and what's wrong, trouble remembering what your decision was yesterday. You have the sense that you used to be a very different person, more confident, more decisive. So how do we translate that into the political? How do we decode gaslighting in politics? How do we understand how it can manipulate us and mislead us? There are three ways. The first, taking a look at what you see and hear and looking out for certain things, and I'll tell you in a minute. Understanding the impact of what's happening, what the gaslighting is doing to you and the way you perceive. And then following the tips that I put together to help us claim our reality and check in with ourselves at all times. So the first, spotting gaslighting, spotting political gaslighting. What do you see and hear? You see and hear constant contradictions and shifting narratives. Today's story changes tomorrow. You see and hear intentionally sowing seeds of doubt and causing confusion. It's all in your head. You see and hear deflecting responsibility and undermining credibility of the person who might be asking the question. I didn't say that. That never happened. You're making all that up. You see and hear aggressive criticism and dehumanizing language. You're crazy. That's so stupid. You see and hear a refusal to accept responsibility for actions or inactions that never happened. You're making it up. You're misremembering. You hear exploiting people's emotions to win support or lying about what's just happened. And what's the impact on us? How can we defend ourselves? We may feel confused and uncertain. One way to deal with that, if you don't know what you're listening to or it's confusing, sort out the truth from distortion by writing things down and seeing what the facts are that are different than the facts that you believe, that you know to be true. Decide if you're in a power struggle with your gaslighter, with somebody who's trying to tell you what the reality is. And if you are in a power struggle, opt out. Say things like, sorry, you feel strongly, I feel strongly, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And you don't even have to say sorry, of course. This conversation's getting too hot. Let's end it now. Identify when your gaslighter may get triggered. Notice when your candidate may get triggered. Notice when you get triggered, what's going on in the conversation, in the debate. When you're gaslighted, you may feel a lot of anger. You hear something that you think is really untrue or really a manipulation. Use your favorite go-to strategies to gather yourself, to bring yourself to a calmer place so that you could think clearly. Notice if you've had deeply held convictions that suddenly you're second guessing, like, wow, I didn't used to think that. Remember that you can't control anyone else's opinion other than your own, even when you're right. You may have a sense that your candidate is not listening to anyone but themselves and their cohorts, their comrades. So what are the tips for claiming your reality and checking in with yourself? Ask yourself, do I trust what this politician is saying? Do people I trust this politician? Ask yourself, does this candidate truly align with my values? Does this candidate align with the facts I know to be true? I know because I've researched, I've listened to other sources, and the sources I trust are different. Ask yourself, has this candidate previously kept promises, and do they own the promises they make? Take a break from viewing the news. Take a break from listening to the gaslighter. Have a cup of coffee, go away for the weekend, visit a friend, turn on Netflix. Certainly abundant movies to watch, an abundance of movies to watch. And notice when you're on your own, when you're not confronted by the gaslighter or listening to the gaslighter, do you feel differently? Is there the space you need to contact what you think, to listen to your own inner voice? Check in with friends and loved ones who've known you for a long time and ask their opinion. Honor your own feelings, perceptions, and experiences, and reclaim what you know to be true. Ahead of this election, make it a practice to regularly check with your values and feelings and honor them. Honor your memory and perceptions, as media and social platforms increasingly will churn out political content for us to digest and evaluate. Thank you very much for listening to what gaslighting is and to taking the time to really consider who you're looking at and whether they're gaslighting you. Please take a minute to put questions in the chat. I'll answer a few in the next few minutes that we have. And if you have further questions, please feel free to contact me through my website, robinstern.com. Okay. Great. I'm going to take a look at the chat now. So people are asking, what kind of phrases can you use to end a political argument, to opt out? I think the same phrases you would use to end any argument that leaves you feeling uncomfortable. Sorry, I can't continue right now. This is getting too heated. I feel strongly, you feel strongly. Let's find a way to talk about it at another time. I appreciate your difference of opinion, and I'd like to listen to it, but right now, when both of us have a lot of big feelings, it's not the right time. We're going to agree to disagree. Let's have a cup of tea. I think this conversation is taking a turn to a place where it's not very comfortable. People are asking, are there certain type of personalities more prone to gaslighting than others? I would say no, that if you have a tendency to be agreeable, then you're more vulnerable to gaslighting. If you are someone who likes to accommodate to other people, who likes to, makes a practice of taking the other person's perspective, you're more vulnerable to gaslighting. And through the years, I've seen that women can be more vulnerable because of socialization. Of course, that is changing. And first of all, men are also vulnerable to gaslighting. I just want to say that I do know that. And but women who typically and traditionally were socialized to be nice, to be empathic, to always take the other perspective. And there are times where you can be so empathic and standing in someone else's shoes so long that you forget to stand in your own. And that often happens in gaslighting relationships, that you're looking at what's going on through the eyes of your gaslighter and managing your behavior because of that. Let's see. Is all gaslighting intentional? No, it's not. The question makes me think of an example with a mother and a daughter, where a mother was trying to, wasn't me, although my kids would say that I definitely did my share of gaslighting through the years. But a mother was really afraid that her daughter was going to a place that was dangerous at night. The daughter wanted to go to a concert. And so rather than saying, I'm really nervous about this for you, I'm uncomfortable, you can't go, or I'd rather you not go, or let's check out the security, the mother said something like, well, you know, I don't think you're the type of person who goes to those types of concerts. Bad girls go to that type of concert. And over time, with communications like that, that young woman began to lose confidence in her own judgment, began to think, wait a minute, I don't think I'm like a bad girl. I think that I'm just want to go to this concert, but wasn't able to hold on to that self-perception because her mother kept insisting. Of course, when they spoke about it, the mother felt terrible and did not intend to undermine her daughter's judgment, ability to make judgments, just really didn't want her to go to the concert. So sometimes out of fear, ultimately is what I'm saying, that you can put yourself in a situation where you're creating doubt for someone else or leading them to doubt themselves when all you wanted to do was to say no. And someone is saying checking your values and feelings is very important. You won't be distracted from what matters to you. And that is, thank you for that comment, because ultimately it's about your integrity. When you're leaving a gaslighting relationship, you're holding on to your integrity tightly and saying, no, there is no one else who can take away my truth. I know what I feel. But importantly, with checking in with your values and feelings and making sure that that feels right to you is taking space, because sometimes with the flood of information coming at you, or the certainty coming at you from your gaslighter and the insistence and the repetition over time, you don't have the space to take a breath and say, this is what I know to be true. Let's see. Are there stages of gaslighting? Thank you for that question. Yes, there are. So the first stage is disbelief, where your partner, your family member, your political candidate says something you think is ridiculous. And you say to yourself, well, that's silly. He doesn't really mean that. In a personal example, between a couple, somebody may say, I saw you like aggressively flirting with that guy. No, I'm not doing that. You know, and you might, as that person, think, wait a minute, like that's just silly. I'm sure he didn't mean it. He was just having a bad day. But over time, if the person who is accusing you of something or saying something you thought was silly repeats that same thing, maybe using different words, but the same message, and you trust that person in some way or give them some power in the moment to influence you, it's a little bit like they're extending their hand in a dance and you're taking their hand. Okay, I'll dance with you here. And so you begin to second guess yourself and defend yourself. Stage 2, defend yourself. So during stage 2, you're ruminating constantly about the conversation. Well, is he right? Am I right? And you feel the need to defend yourself. In fact, it's very hard for people to walk away from gaslighters when they're in stage 2, because it's hard to know that you're walking away from someone at a point in time where that gaslighter thinks something about you or of you that you don't want them to think. And so you stay trying to fight for your good reputation before you can walk away. It's not going to happen. Stage 3 is depression. So disbelief, where you think it's a one-off, it's a silly thing. Defense, where you're defending yourself and trying to prove to your gaslighter that you're right. And bulk up your reputation with them, bulk up the sense of being cared about and joining them. And then depression, where you're more often than not standing in your gaslighter's shoes. More often than not, you're thinking to yourself, I am a lousy girlfriend. I am a bad daughter. I am an inconsiderate mother. Those are the stages of gaslighting. And as I said a few minutes ago, many people, when they descend into the third stage, have the experience of feeling no joy in their life, can't remember the last time they had joy, feeling like they can't make decisions, feeling like they can't hold on to who they were, that in fact, they're a very different person than they were when they entered the relationship. So I'm going to have to say goodbye to you all right now. I thank you very much for being here with me, for living through the music, the first few minutes of music. And I'm just going to ask one question. I'm going to answer one more question. Are people born gaslighters? No, they're not. Gaslighting is a socially learned phenomena. It's a set of behaviors. It's a dynamic that people either happen into and it works and they do it again, or they're taught it by experiencing it or watching it. Thank you very much again. And please check out my website, robinstern.com, for more information.